At Starbound, we tell stories the human way, not with artificial voices or AI slop. In the end, what's HFY without humanity? Subscribe to keep it this way. My name's Chikondi. Let's begin. The thing in the containment field at Lunar Analysis Station 3 was, to put it in the most generous technical terms, an artifact of profound neglect. A pitted, scarred metallic ball, roughly 3 meters in diameter, floated in the field, bearing the radiation burns of unshielded atmospheric entry and the pockmarks of micrometeoroid impacts accumulated over a vast length of time. It resembled a forgotten targeting drone, rediscovered after millennia adrift in the void. Dr. Kenna stared at the probe's holographic projection, her posture taut. For once, the restless intelligence and biting sarcasm that usually animated her expression gave way to bafflement. Around her, low hums and the soft clatter of keyboards filled the observation deck as her analysis team worked. Screens glowed with spectrographic readouts, gravimetric plots, and radiation decay charts, each reinforcing the same incredible narrative.
"Run the material composition again, Levin,"
she said, her voice sharp enough to cut through the room's low murmur. She kept her gaze on the derelict sphere's image. Levin, a junior astrophysicist with a perpetually worried expression, tapped at his console.
"Doctor, that's the 12th time. The shell is a simple iron-nickel alloy. Impurities are consistent with chondritic meteorites. The composition is mundane, the alloy showing raw exposure. It's a rock, a shaped rock with some scorch marks. And the inside?"
"That's the part that is something else entirely,"
Levin said, his tone an octave lower. Kenna tilted her head.
"Elaborate." "The casing is as crude as an early steam boiler,"
she murmured, more to herself than to anyone else.
"And inside it is a captured star."
That was the paradox that had brought the Terran Confederacy's brightest minds to a standstill for 3 days. The probe's exterior was archaic, almost comically so. Its maneuvering thrusters were simple chemical rockets, its communication antenna a flimsy-looking metal stick. But deep within its core, shielded by layers of mundane alloy, was a drive system that manipulated space-time. It generated a localized field that sidestepped conventional physics. The energy signature was immense, a quiet, stable whisper of physics that humanity had only ever outlined in the most esoteric theoretical papers. Humanity had mastered its own star system. They could compile matter from raw energy, build cities in days with industrial cohesion fields, and stroll around Jupiter's moons under the comfortable blanket of artificial gravity. Near instantaneous travel between planets was a solved problem, a mundane part of interstellar logistics. But the great yawning gulf between the stars remained a barrier. Faster-than-light travel was their sound barrier, their Everest, the one great lingering challenge. And now this cosmic cannonball had appeared, a relic from a civilization that apparently encased its miracles in scrap metal. It had appeared at the system's edge, coasted inward on its chemical rockets, and settled into a stable orbit around Earth's moon as if waiting for someone to notice it.
"The team from the belt is still arguing about the drive's power source,"
Dr. Javier Mendoza, the propulsion analysis unit head, spoke from her left.
"They think it's a contained singularity. I maintain it's a stable exotic matter reaction. We're taking bets. You in?"
"I'm in for an outside contender,"
Kenna shot back, her focus still on the probe.
"It's something we've overlooked, something elegant and probably stupidly obvious that we've missed for 300 years because we're too busy being clever."
Her specialty lay elsewhere, in xenolinguistics, a field that, until 3 days ago, was entirely theoretical. She was the person they called when they found patterns from unknown physical sources, when the universe presented a puzzle of information. For her entire career, the xeno part of her title was an academic joke. Now it represented the single most important job in human history.
"Anything from the data core?"
Javier asked.
"It's broadcasting a simple repeating packet on a broad EM spectrum,"
Kenna said, turning to her own console. A complex waveform shimmered on the screen.
"It's a welcome mat, a hello we are here signal, A basic encryption layer shields the core itself. I could have cracked it on the first day.
And you held back?
Javier asked.
Secretary General reads orders. Observe only. Avoid surprises. You know Jovan. He could find a way to make a 5-year plan out of making toast.
She mimicked Reed's calm, deliberate cadence, then gave a slight shake of her head.
He wants to spend a month differentially analyzing the hull plating. I want to know who sent it. Our motivations diverge.
He's being careful, Kenna.
He's being slow, she corrected. Caution applies when the stakes are unknown. We know the stakes. That thing out there proves we have neighbors. Every second we spend debating protocol is a second we're leaving ourselves vulnerable.
She tapped and swiped across the holographic interface, summoning lines of code. The probe's encryption was a beautiful little thing, a mathematical lock based on prime numbers and stellar classifications. The code was polite, inviting. It was practically begging to be unlocked. A soft chime echoed through the observation deck. A red icon flashed on the main screen. Incoming message, Secretary General Reed. Kenna let out a theatrical sigh.
Ah, here comes the voice of caution from on high. Put him through.
The main screen flickered, and Jovan Reed's face appeared. He was an older man, his face lined with the signs of thoughtful consideration and long nights. He sat in his office on Earth, the homeworld's blue and white marble just visible over his shoulder through a large window.
Dr. Rohan,
he began, his voice smooth and measured. Report.
The objective remains an inert, ugly ball,
Kenna said.
My official assessment is that a committee of intelligent space slugs with a deep appreciation for minimalist yet threatening aesthetics built it.
The lines on Jovan's face held steady.
And your candid assessment?
It's a messenger, Jovan. An ancient one. The drive core is a masterpiece. The shell is an antique. The contradiction is the message. They're telling us they're old, and they're telling us they're powerful.
The Council has decided,
Jovan said, bypassing her analysis.
We have agreed, after a lengthy deliberation, to authorize the Central Data Core's decryption. Proceed, Doctor. And Kenna.
He paused, and he met her gaze across the light seconds of space.
Do it with care.
The connection ended. Kenna smirked.
Permission to do the thing I intended to do anyway. How generous of him.
She turned back to her console, her smirk tightening into a line of concentration.
All right, people. You heard the man. Let's knock on the door and see who's home.
She ran her decryption algorithm. Her algorithm engaged in a nuanced dialogue. Her program identified the lock's mathematical language and spoke back to it in its own tongue, presenting the logical keys in a sequence so elegant that the probe's ancient software yielded almost instantly. The process the Council had assumed would require weeks, perhaps months of careful computational effort, was over in 89 seconds. A new symbol appeared on the main screen, a stylized three-pointed star. Below it, text scrolled, translating itself from a complex series of geometric shapes into the Terran Confederacy's standard font.
File access granted,
Levin read aloud, his voice a quiet murmur.
Opening primary communication package.
A hush fell over the observation deck. Every screen cast a pale light on faces frozen in anticipation. This moment would divide human history into two eras, before and after. The screen flickered again. An image resolved itself. A being of articulated gunmetal gray segments appeared, its body moving with a fluid, serpentine motion. 4 multi-jointed limbs unfurled from its torso, elegant and deliberate. Its ovoid head was smooth, featuring a single, wide horizontal photoreceptor band that glowed with a soft internal light. The being wore ornate, flowing robes of a deep crimson, and behind it stood a grand hall of architecture that twisted in upon itself. Then a synthesized voice filled the room. The translation software rendered the speech in stilted, literal syntax. Beings native to the star system designated 3 Gamma Sol 9. the creature began, an upper and a lower limb on its right side moving in a slow, synchronized, condescending pattern. "By the eternal decree of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Hadrian Lux IV, Master of the Thousand Stars, Lord of the Crimson Fleet, and Shepherd of the Galactic Path, this serves as notification of your formal incorporation into the Sci-Fi Imperium." The only sound was the low hum of the station's life support. A strange, cold sensation prickled at the base of Kenna's neck. "We have noted your technological development," the recording continued, its tone flat and dismissive. "While rudimentary, it shows potential for productive service. Your world, rich in heavy metals and biological resources, will be a valuable addition to the Imperial Demesne. You will submit your instruments of governance to the first designated Imperial Proctor who makes contact. You will surrender your fleets, disarm your defenses, and prepare your populace for integration. Compliance ensures continued existence. Defiance will result in atmospheric cleansing. You have one of your planet's years to prepare for your subjugation. Long may the Emperor reign." The image faded, and the Imperium's three-pointed star replaced it. For 10 seconds, the station's hum was the only sound, until a single choked gasp broke the quiet. Someone was laughing. It was Kenna. She clapped a hand to her mouth, her shoulders trembling. The laughter was quiet at first, a strangled gasp, but it grew into a full-throated, unrestrained roar. The laughter was infectious. Levin let out a nervous chuckle, which turned into a giggle. Soon the entire room, filled with the most brilliant scientific minds humanity had to offer, echoed with laughter. They laughed at the sheer, unmitigated pomposity of it all. They laughed at the label of rudimentary from a creature who sent its mail in a tin can. Kenna brushed a tear from her eye, her breathing still ragged.
Atmospheric cleansing? Did he actually say atmospheric cleansing? Who writes this stuff? It sounds like propaganda written for children.
"They're serious, Kenna,"
he smiled faintly. "That was a declaration of war."
"No,"
Kenna corrected, her laughter subsiding into a wide, dangerous grin.
"That was a clerical error. They sent a form letter to the wrong address."
She glanced from the mocking symbol on the screen to the raw data stream still pouring from the probe's core. The pompous message was just the wrapping paper. The real gift lay buried underneath. Her superiors were already scrambling, alerting Earth's leadership, preparing for emergency council meetings. Their focus was the threat. She focused on the terabytes of engine telemetry tucked away in the probe's travel logs, the junk mail, the metadata, the boring operational drivel that everyone overlooked. And in that data, a flicker, then a pattern. While her colleagues panicked and her leaders prepared to debate, Kenna Rohan leaned closer to her console, her grin tightening into a line of predatory focus. The Sci-Fi Imperium had just handed her the key to the universe. Now she would use it to find the Emperor's front door and ring his bell. While Jovan Reed was drowning in process, Kenna Rohan was surfing on chaos. For 5 days, the Terran Confederacy Council's debate spiraled, agonizing and circular. The emergency session convened in the Assembly Hall in Olympia, the Confederacy's capital, a grand amphitheater designed for calm, rational discourse. Right now, shouts echoed off its acoustic panels. Jovan presided over it all, his expression calm, but Kenna, watching via a secure feed from her lab on Luna, saw the muscle jumping in his jaw.
"A diplomatic overture is the only responsible course of action,"
argued the delegate from the Martian colonies, a woman named Inez.
"This could be a misunderstanding, a mistranslation. We must respond with a message of peace, outlining our own sovereign status."
"Peace!"
scoffed Admiral Quinn, the head of the Terran Defense Force. His uniform was immaculate, his posture unbending.
"They threatened to cleanse our atmosphere. That is a clear promise. We should be mobilizing the fleet. We have cohesion field projectors that can atomize their ships before they even get within weapons range. We need to show them that this system is a fortress.
A fortress they can apparently bypass with FTL travel, Admiral,
Kenna muttered to her screen.
while we're stuck here throwing rocks.
The arguments continued. Factions formed and dissolved. The idealists argued for a gentle and open-handed approach. The Hawks demanded a preemptive strike, using humanity's superior in-system technology to make an example of the first Psymech vessel that dared to show its face. Jovan listened to it all, acknowledging each speaker with a nod, steering the conversation away from personal attacks and back to the central question. They were debating the rules of a game they had yet to understand, using a map that was 300 years out of date. Kenna, on the other hand, was drawing a new one. She had locked herself in her primary analysis suite, ordering the station AI to grant access only to her direct team and to filter all routine hails. The Psymech ultimatum was a problem for politicians. The data stream from the probe was a problem for her. And the data stream was the most beautiful problem she had ever seen. The telemetry logs were a chaotic storm of numbers, a raw dump of the probe's journey across interstellar space. To anyone else, the logs were incomprehensible static. To Kenna, they were music. She perceived languages in everything, in code, in mathematics, in the subtle grammar of a collapsing star. And the Psymech FTL drive spoke a specific language. She filtered out the noise, searching for the core operational sequence, the moment of transition from sublight to superluminal velocity. There, buried in the data, she found it. A recursive pattern in the probe's space-time wake, a subtle frequency. Human physicists had always assumed FTL would require a brute force energy application. This specific wave pattern vibrated space-time in just the right way to allow a vessel to sidestep reality. A current of discovery jolted through her. She pulled up the archives, digging through centuries of human scientific history. Her search parameters were esoteric, focusing on fringe theories and abandoned research. And then she found it. The Casimir-Faraday inversion theory, proposed over a century ago by a pair of brilliant but tragically underfunded theorists. The theory posited that FTL travel was possible by creating a pocket of negative energy density that would allow a ship to ride on a self-generated wave of space-time, effectively tunneling between 2 points, instead of by exceeding the speed of light. The scientific community had dismissed the theory. The calculations required to identify the correct frequency and maintain the stability of the negative energy bubble were computationally prohibitive. A computer the size of a planet would take thousands of years to solve the initial equation. It was a theoretical dead end.
You circumvented it,
she whispered to the empty room, her eyes wide as she understood.
You cheated.
The Psymech had bypassed the calculation. The probe's data showed that they had found a natural phenomenon that performed the calculation for them. Filaments, cosmic strings of exotic matter left over from the Big Bang, crisscrossed the galaxy. These strings vibrated at the correct frequency. The Psymech FTL drive merely latched onto an existing one. It was less like inventing the automobile and more like discovering a galactic superhighway that existed all along. The FTL drive was just the on-ramp.
Levin! Javier! Get in here now!
Her yell echoed in the sterile lab. Her team scrambled in, their expressions worried. They found her hunched over her console, a manic grin on her face, her eyes alight.
The Casimir-Faraday inversion,
she said, pointing at a complex equation she had scrawled on a holographic whiteboard.
They're using the Casimir-Faraday inversion.
Javier stared at the equation.
Infeasible. The computational requirements
are irrelevant if the solution is a constant,
Kenna interrupted, her words coming in a torrent.
They bypass the calculation by listening for the frequency. Their drive tunes itself to the background vibration of a cosmic string. It's a key. And we, thanks to this idiotic, pompous subjugation letter, have a copy of the key.
She set to work. She functioned as a conductor. Earth's computational networks, the linked processing cores of humanity's greatest thinking machines, were hers to command. She fed them the Psymech probe's telemetry, the core principles of the Casimir-Faraday theory, and guided 1,000 of humanity's best minds through the storm of simulations. For days, the lab became her world. Discarded synth protein wrappers and empty caffeine bulbs piled up next to her console. Sleep was a series of 20-minute naps in her chair, jolted awake by a new simulation result or a breakthrough in the equations. Simulations flickered across her screens. Models collapsed and she rebuilt them. She was reverse engineering a miracle, guided by the ghost of a forgotten human theory and the arrogant oversight of an alien empire. On the morning of the 5th day, as the council in Olympia was beginning to debate the exact phrasing of a subordinate clause in their proposed diplomatic response, a quiet chime echoed in Kenna's lab. The simulation had stabilized. On her main screen, a virtual vessel, sleek and silver, engaged its drive. Space around it flexed and held. The ship slid sideways out of reality and reappeared a simulated light year away. The journey had taken less than a second. A slow, weary smile spread across Kenna's face as she leaned back in her chair. She had done it. Humanity had a way out. The cage door stood open. Hey, if you're liking this story or you just think we're doing a great job at Starbound, please leave a like on this video. Now back to the story. The Council's inaction was a strategic liability. They were playing checkers, while the other side was playing a 3-dimensional chess game they were unwittingly losing. Talking peace with a culture that opened negotiations with surrender or die was suicide. The only language a bully understood was a show of strength, or in this case, a well-targeted, existentially terrifying whisper in the ear. While the politicians debated, Kenna went back to work. Her target was the probe's communication system. Deep in its code lay a low-level diplomatic beacon ID, a sort of digital passport. The old protocol, likely untracked, was the perfect backdoor. Hacking their military networks was a dead end. They would have hardened and shielded those networks. But a civilization as old and vast as the Imperium had built itself on a mountain of bureaucracy. And bureaucracy meant logistics. And data, to Kenna, was a weapon. She wrote a simple, elegant program. A bot. It spoofed the probe's ancient diplomatic ID and identified itself as a Logistics Query Bot Series 9, tasked with updating redundant shipping manifests. The bot was the most unassuming digital entity imaginable. For 48 hours she let it run, a quiet little mouse she released into the grand unguarded library of the Psymech Imperium's public network. Their security was a joke, built on arrogance. The concept that a rudimentary species would even think to probe their public data network, let alone have the capability to do so, was so alien to them that they protected it with little more than a simple hierarchical password system. The hierarchy was strict. An admiral could access a captain's data, but the reverse was structurally prohibited. The concept of an outsider penetrating their hierarchy was inconceivable. Her bot, with its dusty, forgotten diplomatic credentials, gained access as a trusted, if minor, functionary. It patiently crawled through the Psymech public network, requesting shipping logs, cross-referencing star charts, and downloading public records. It moved through the network, accessing only public-facing files, its activity blending with the background hum of routine maintenance. She was looking for one being, Emperor Hadrian Lux IV. It was a galactic search for a single datum. She started with public appearances, cross-referencing them with the Imperial fleet's official movements. She tracked his private transport shuttle, a vessel named the Gilded Rest. She followed its flight plans, its supply orders, its maintenance schedules. She correlated that data with news reports from local systems, society gossip columns, and even catering contracts for state functions. The picture emerged from the noise. The Emperor was a creature of habit. He detested formal duties and spent most of his time at a handful of private residences scattered across the Imperium. Her bot, still patiently collecting data, flagged an anomaly. Logistics had diverted a massive, unscheduled shipment of Juvian pleasure nectar, the Emperor's favorite beverage, according to a leaked society column from a provincial newsfeed, from the capital world to a small, secluded moon in the Perseus Arm. The moon, designated as an imperial recreational preserve, was purely residential, containing a single sprawling estate shielded from public view. The transport logs for the Gilded Rest confirmed it had docked there 2 days ago. She worked on her console. She accessed the moon's local network, a civilian weather and traffic control system with open access. From there, she easily tapped into the estate's own external sensor grid. She found him. A single heat-radiating life sign consistent with the Cymek physiology described in the probe's data, sitting on a large open-air terrace. She had his address. Back in Olympia, the Council had, after days of grueling debate, agreed on the text of their response. The text was a message refined over days of debate, a meticulously worded overture of peace, strength, and a desire for mutual understanding. Jovan Reed was preparing to transmit it. Kenna looked at the real-time geographic coordinates shimmering on her screen. They were accurate to within a single meter. She looked at the draft of the Council's polite, reasonable, and ultimately futile message. Then she acted. She had discovered a loophole, a legacy forwarding system in the diplomatic comms network, designed for routing logistical emergencies. Any message tagged with a specific, archaic priority cargo flag shunted automatically past all filters into the personal queue of the sector's highest-ranking official. A bug born of bureaucratic laziness. It had remained for centuries. She opened a new communications window, routing it through the bureaucratic loophole she'd discovered, bypassing privileged channels. The recipient address was a personal identifier belonging directly to the Emperor. She composed her reply. It contained only a single line of raw data, the exact, real-time geographic coordinates of the Emperor's villa. She took a deep breath, holding her finger over the send command. This was it. She was breaking every protocol, single-handedly committing the entire human race to a course of action with permanent consequences. The act was reckless, insane. It was, she thought with a tight smile, the only logical move. She sent it. Emperor Hadrian Lux IV, Master of the Thousand Stars, was having a perfectly indolent morning. He was reclining on a lounger of woven light on the grand terrace of his villa on Virens, his favorite pleasure moon. Before him, a garden of alien singing flora tumbled down a gentle slope toward a sea that shimmered like liquid silver. The air was warm, scented with the sweet perfume of the blossoms, and the sky was a serene, cloudless violet. He took a delicate sip from a flute of spun metal filled with chilled Juvian pleasure nectar. A small automated drone hovered nearby, misting his brow to maintain the perfect ambient temperature. This was his life. The business of running an empire of 1,000 stars, thankfully, fell to others. His role was to exist, to be a symbol of the Imperium's eternal stability and majesty. He performed this role with masterful inactivity. His personal interface, a small jewel-like device floating an inch above his wrist, chimed. A soft, deferential sound, but a pitch silent for years. The tone for a priority alpha message. A message of such importance that it bypassed his entire retinue of secretaries, ministers, and guards to appear directly before him. He sighed, annoyed at the interruption. It was probably Heston, his perpetually anxious fleet commander, with some tedious report about pirates in a fringe system. He gestured with his upper left limb, and a holographic screen materialized in the air before him. The message originated from an internal masked source. He frowned at the irregularity. He opened it. The screen displayed a single line of alphanumeric characters. The line held only coordinates. Virens, latitude 34.17.82 north. Longitude 118.29.45 west. Altitude 212 meters. The Emperor frowned. The coordinates for this moon, Virens, they seemed familiar. Curious, he gestured with his lower right limb, activating his personal location sensor, which projected a small map in the corner of his screen, a blinking dot indicating his position. He looked at the coordinates in the message. He looked at the blinking dot's coordinates on his map. They matched perfectly. Emperor Hadrian Lux IV froze. The flute of spun metal dropped from his grasp, shattering on the marble terrace with a shockingly loud report in the morning quiet. The members of his royal guard, standing at silent attention at the terrace's edge, pivoted at the sound. Their emperor, the divine embodiment of a 10,000-year-old dynasty, reacted. The articulated segments of his skin pulled taut, retracting a fraction of a millimeter to expose the paler, softer tissue at the joints, a physiological fear response from a more savage evolutionary past. The response was a primal reaction the royal family had suppressed for centuries.
Your Majesty?
A guard asked, taking a hesitant step forward. The Emperor stared, speechless. He was staring at the coordinates, his photoreceptor band flared to maximum brightness. The message was a statement, a quiet, clinical declaration that said, "We know where you are. Right now. We are looking right at you."
Get me off this moon!
He shrieked, his voice a ragged squawk.
Now! To the shuttle! Go! Go!
The Royal Guard's training covered ceremonial duties and direct assassination attempts. This unseen threat lay outside their protocols. They looked at each other for a fraction of a second before their conditioning took over. Two of them grabbed the Emperor by his upper limbs, practically lifting him from his lounger, while the others formed a protective cordon, their energy rifles appearing in their hands. They shoved their terrified sovereign, whose segments still showed gaps of pale flesh, across the terrace and into the safety of the villa. The serene morning on Viren's shattered. Alarms blared across the estate. Drones zipped through the air, sensor arrays replacing their misting nozzles, frantically scanning the serene violet sky for a hidden enemy. Aboard his shuttle, the Gilded Rest, now screaming its way into orbit at maximum acceleration, the Emperor paced the command deck.
Who sent that?
He demanded of his communications officer.
Find them now! Your Majesty, the message originated from inside our own diplomatic network.
The officer stammered, his manipulators dancing across his console, two typing commands while the other adjusted sensor arrays.
It used an ancient priority alpha credential. The source is masked. Masked?
The Emperor bellowed.
Everything is traceable. I want the fleet mobilized. I want every ship we have scouring the stars for the source of that signal. Contact High Command. Tell them to put the entire Imperium on high alert. Now!
The command went out, a wave of urgent top-priority orders flooding the Imperial network. The main battle fleets, positioned deep within their own territory, were weeks away even with FTL. The Emperor demanded an immediate response. His Chief of Staff, Heston, acting on panicked orders, did the only thing he could. He dispatched the closest military force available. The Parthian Rim Patrol Fleet, a small, aging flotilla assigned to anti-piracy duties in a quiet corner of the galaxy, a symbol of routine patrol rather than imperial might. But the flotilla was close, and all they had. A dozen bulky, intimidating warships tore a hole in space-time, jumping toward the coordinates from which the original probe launched. They were heading for a star designated 3 Gamma Sol 9, ready to hunt down the source of the threat and atomize it into oblivion. Back in the Sol system, a new tension underscored the quiet hum of operations. An automated network traffic monitor, an unsleeping digital watchman, had flagged an unauthorized activation of the alien probe's high-gain antenna originating from Lunar Analysis Station 3. The alert appeared on a secondary screen in Jovan Reed's office in Olympia. He was in the middle of a final briefing with his diplomatic team before transmitting their meticulously crafted message of peace. His stomach tightened. With weary certainty, he knew who was responsible.
"Patch me to Analysis Station 3,
he said, his voice dangerously quiet.
"Security, Chief. Highest priority."
The connection was instant. "Mr. Secretary General!"
"I have a flag on the probe's transmitter. The command source is Dr. Rohan's primary analysis suite," Jovan stated. "Confirm and report."
The security chief's face went rigid. "One moment, sir." A few seconds of frantic typing. "Confirmed, sir. A single high-density data packet went out approximately 30 minutes ago via the probe itself. She bypassed the firewalls."
Place Dr. Rohan under formal arrest, Jovan ordered, his voice cold. Confine her to quarters under guard. Hold her incommunicado. Do you understand?
Sir, on what grounds?
On the grounds that she has just, in all likelihood, declared war on behalf of every person on this planet, having consulted none of us. Do it.
The line cut. Jovan Reed leaned back in his chair, resting his chin on his steepled fingers. He closed his eyes, the muscles in his shoulders slumping. For days, he had painstakingly built a bridge of diplomacy. Kenna Rohan had just dynamited the foundations and lit the rubble on fire. And yet, a part of him, a small, cold, calculating part that he rarely acknowledged, admired the sheer, unmitigated audacity of it. The move's elegant, unexpected aggression bordered on genius. He had planned to send a letter. She had kicked down the door. His console chimed again. It was Admiral Quinn.
Jovan, long-range detection just picked up multiple FTL signatures. They're dropping out of transit. High Earth orbit. 12 of them. Military configuration. They match the probe's general design profile. The fleet has arrived, Jovan said, his voice grim. Admiral, I assume the diplomat's courtesy is ready.
It has been ready for a day, waiting for your order. We rushed it to completion the moment Kenna's team cracked the FTL drive. It's a prototype, Jovan, barely tested.
It will have to do,
Reed said, standing up.
Scramble my transport. I will meet them.
You're going out there yourself? Quinn asked, shocked. That's reckless. We should send a drone, or a military escort at least.
They're expecting a fight, Admiral. They expect a cowering species behind its defenses. A single diplomatic vessel emerging to greet them will break those expectations. And its sole passenger, the leader of this government, will present an unexpected outcome.
He straightened his jacket.
Dr. Rohan started this conversation. It falls to me to finish it.
The diplomat's courtesy was a marvel of design. Where the Cymek ships were brutalist wedges of dark metal bristling with weapon emplacements, the human vessel was a sleek silver needle. Its design prized speed and elegance, a statement of confidence. Its most powerful weapon was the message its existence sent. We figured out your greatest technological secret in less than a week, and our first thought was to build this. Using a modified industrial cohesion field to scatter sensor returns, a military application of their construction technology, the Courtesy had positioned itself directly in the Cymek fleet's path. As the 12 warships lumbered into orbit, their sensors sweeping for threats, the Courtesy appeared. It dropped its dampening field, its silver hull glinting in the harsh sunlight. A single small vessel faced a squadron of predators. Aboard the Cymek flagship, the Imperial Hammer, Commander Varric Kliss stared at his viewscreen in disbelief.
What is that?
He demanded.
Where did it come from?
Scanners were clear, Commander,
his sensor officer reported, his voice tight with confusion.
It just materialized. One moment empty space, the next, it's just there. Its arrival was silent, leaving a clean sensor sweep.
A channel opened.
This is Commander Varric Kliss of the Parthian Rim Patrol Fleet,
Varric broadcasted, his tone bristling with aggression.
You are in violation of Imperial space. Identify yourselves and prepare for inspection. Who are you?
The reply came in flawless organic Cymek.
Commander Kliss, this is Secretary General Jovan Reed of the Terran Confederacy. We are humanity, and we believe there's been a misunderstanding we would like to correct. Your assessment is incorrect,
Varric snarled, trying to regain his footing.
We received a direct threat against the life of the Emperor. Surrender now, and he may show you mercy.
To emphasize his point, he ordered his weapons officer to lock onto the human ship. A targeting reticle appeared on his main screen, painting the silver vessel.
A demonstration, then,
Reed replied, his voice serene.
To show that our intentions are peaceful, please observe your forward weapons console, Commander.
Varric Kliss glanced down. His main console, a solid block of polished metal and embedded opalescent conduits, seemed to dissolve for a moment. Then, with a series of soft clicks, it disassembled itself. Screws unscrewed themselves, panels slid back. The opalescent conduits lifted from their sockets and floated in the zero gravity of the bridge. Within seconds, the entire console had deconstructed into a cloud of its component parts, hovering harmlessly in the air before him. Every component was intact, just disassembled. On the bridge of the Imperial Hammer, the crew stood frozen. They stared, their photoreceptor bands wide with alarm. This was a statement of technological superiority so profound it was like witnessing a miracle. The quiet, effortless display declared, "We can take apart the atoms of your ship while you're still inside it. Your weapons are irrelevant." All four of Varric Kliss's manipulators grew cold. The creature on that ship had used some kind of focused industrial beam, a cohesion field manipulator, from thousands of kilometers away, targeting a single console inside his shielded bridge. The Imperium had such technology, of course. Theirs were the size of a moon. He was far beyond his depth. This was a power to reckon with. This was a new order of power.
"Open the secure channel back to the Emperor,"
he whispered to his communications officer.
"Immediately!"
Aboard the diplomat's courtesy, Jovan Reed watched the cloud of components on his own viewscreen. The standoff was stable for now. Terror and anger made the Psymech a volatile combination. Diplomacy was his field, yet their culture, their psychology, their internal politics remained a mystery. He was navigating by instinct alone. He needed the person who had the map.
"Get me a secure private channel to Dr. Rohan's holding cell,"
he said to the ship's communication officer.
"Audio and video. Encrypt it with my personal key. This conversation is to remain private."
A moment later, a small screen flickered to life on his private console. Kenna Rohan's face appeared. She was in a simple gray prison uniform, sitting on a plain cot in a bare white room on Luna, less than 2 light seconds away. A sober intensity had replaced her usual smirk. She looked tired, but her gaze was sharp, alert.
"Jovan,"
she said, her voice a low murmur.
"Redecorating, are we? I find the minimalist approach cold."
"You have put us in an interesting position, Doctor,"
Reed said, his voice level.
"I put us in the only position," she countered. "You wanted to send a polite letter they would have laughed at before sending a fleet of planet crackers. I sent them a message they would understand. Fear is a universal language."
"Perhaps,"
Reed conceded.
"But now I am in a tense standoff with a terrified, angry alien commander who is one bad decision away from opening fire. His flagship is the Imperial Hammer. He's posturing, trying to project strength. I need to de-escalate, yet I must maintain our position of dominance. I need to know what he's thinking."
A ghost of her old grin returned.
"Give me access to the station's high-gain sensor arrays and my old bot data. I can't hack their internal military systems, but physics doesn't lie."
Reed hesitated for only a second.
"Done."
Data streamed across the screen beside her face. She flicked her gaze across the station's spectrographic readouts and her own collated files. On the main channel, Commander Kliss was trying to bluff.
"My fleet possesses singularity cannons that could atomize your vessel with a single shot,"
he blustered, his voice regaining some of its earlier arrogance. Kenna spoke through Reed's private earpiece, her voice cool and clear.
"He's lying. I'm reading the radiometric emissions from his ship's hull. His reactor is bleeding waste heat like a stuck pig. The magnetic containment is unstable. If he tries to fire a singularity cannon, he'll melt his own ship. His maintenance is garbage. Also, I cross-referenced his name with the public accolades database I scraped earlier. He's a mid-level functionary with 0 combat honors. His psychological profile suggests a career bureaucrat who fears political failure more than death. He's terrified of his superiors."
Jovan Reed allowed himself the barest hint of a smile. He leaned forward, his voice calm and steady on the open channel.
"Commander Kliss, Our sensors indicate a significant magnetic instability in your primary reactor containment. I would recommend you divert auxiliary power to stabilize it before attempting to charge main weapons. It would be a shame for your crew to suffer due to a faulty conduit, though we would be happy to offer technical assistance.
A long pause followed from the Cymac flagship. Varric Kliss stared at his own engineering readouts, which confirmed the humans' statement exactly. Their superiority extended beyond weapons. They could see right through his ship, right through his lies. Their knowledge was absolute. The commander's bravado dissolved. He relayed the situation to the Emperor in a terrified, whispered report. He explained the terrifyingly advanced ship, the deconstructed console, the human's intimate knowledge of his vessel's internal failings. On his speeding shuttle, Emperor Hadrian Lux IV listened, his segments still showing the pale, unsettling gaps of exposed flesh. His initial terror was now mingling with a chillingly pragmatic sense of self-preservation. These humans were some kind of terrifyingly advanced cryptids, emerging from a dark corner of the galaxy with technology that defied reason. A direct confrontation was suicidal. But perhaps their strangeness was an opportunity. They had disassembled a console and then offered technical support. It was bizarre. It was unnerving. It was a negotiation.
"Open a direct channel to the human leader,"
the Emperor commanded, his voice shaking slightly. He hoped to salvage his dignity, to regain control of a situation that had spiraled utterly beyond him. Jovan Reed sat on the bridge of the courtesy as the Emperor's face appeared on his main screen. The ruler of 1,000 stars looked frightened, diminished.
"I am Emperor Hadrian Lux IV,"
he announced, his voice straining for a regal tone that kept breaking.
"You have made your point. What are your terms? What tribute do you demand for my safety?"
Here it was, the pivotal moment, the culmination of Kenna's reckless gambit and his own steady diplomacy. He held the power to demand anything, to bring the Cymac Imperium to its knees. But Jovan Reed was playing a longer game.
Your Majesty,
he began, his tone respectful but firm.
Our terms are simple. We seek partnership, a mutual alliance. We are humanity, and our only desire is to correct the unfortunate misunderstanding initiated by your probe.
In her cell, Kenna listened and smiled genuinely.
You sent us a message of subjugation, Reed continued. We replied by demonstrating that we could compromise your personal security. This was an act of clarification, a correction. You believed us to be rudimentary, suitable for conquest. We have shown you that we are, at the least, your equals.
The Emperor was silent, his photoreceptor band studying Reed's face.
Our interest is in peace,
Reed said, delivering the critical point.
However, it is clear that your Imperium's information security is lacking. We would be willing to offer our expertise to help you restore the integrity of your networks, a gesture of goodwill. In exchange, we would like to open a formal dialogue about an exchange of technology, culture, and a mutual recognition of sovereignty. We are new to this galaxy. It seems prudent to begin our journey with a powerful friend.
He was offering the Emperor a way out, a way to save face. He was offering a partnership, framing Earth's shocking appearance on the galactic stage as an opportunity for the Emperor to look like a forward-thinking diplomat. Many in the Cymac Imperium were displeased with the Emperor's sudden pivot to diplomacy. In the heavily shielded command center of the Imperial First Fleet, hundreds of light years away, Admiral Garrus watched the reports coming in from the Sol system with a growing sense of disgust. Garrus was a warrior of the old school. He descended from a long line of conquerors who had built the Imperium with blood and iron. The Emperor's willingness to talk to these upstart humans struck him as a sign of catastrophic weakness. These creatures had threatened the Emperor's life. The only honorable response was extermination. The Emperor's cowardice was an opportunity. The Imperial Assembly was full of rivals, hardliners who believed Hadrian Lux IV was too soft, too decadent to rule. If Garrus could expose the Emperor's weakness, if he could frame this human threat as a crisis beyond the current leadership's capacity, he could force a vote to challenge the succession. He had a copy of the original coordinates Kenna had sent. Security had logged them as evidence. The coordinates were all the proof he needed. He drafted a message to the assembly of his political rivals. In it, he framed the humans as a savage, mysterious species that had developed some kind of unfathomable assassination technology. He claimed they wanted to atomize the Emperor and dismantle the Imperium. He attached the coordinates as proof of their terrifying targeted capabilities. He was leaking the data to force a war, to render diplomacy untenable. He encrypted the message and sent it through a secure military channel. Aboard the Diplomat's Courtesy, Kenna's network crawler, monitoring the high-level traffic gateways of the Imperium's data infrastructure, detected the transfer. A massive encrypted data packet moving from Admiral Garrus's flagship to a list of known political dissidents.
Jovan, we have a problem,
she said into the private comm.
A hardline admiral named Garrus is trying to stage a coup. He's leaking our threat to the Emperor's political rivals to force a war.
Can you stop it?
Reed asked, his face grim.
No,
Kenna said, typing swiftly on her virtual console. She had seconds before the transmission completed its handshake with the recipient's servers.
The channel is too secure to break, but...
She grinned sharply.
I have another way. I can piggyback on it.
She could edit the envelope it was traveling in. Working with frantic speed, she located the digital signature of the Imperial Internal Security Bureau, the most feared and respected agency in the government, a signature she had found in the public archives attached to censorship notices. She forged a high-level verification packet from them, a digital seal of caution. She attached her forged packet to Garrus's signal just as it was being sent. It arrived in the inboxes of the conspirators perfectly. But when they opened it, a bright crimson banner flashed across the top of the screen. Warning: this message contains unverified intelligence from a politically compromised source, Admiral Garrus, Fleet 1. The data's credibility is currently under Imperial review for potential treasonous manipulation. Proceed with extreme caution. A single, perfectly placed piece of bureaucratic red tape neutralized Garrus's bombshell. His message, intended to be a call to arms, now looked like a desperate, possibly treasonous fabrication. His rivals, fearing the Internal Security Bureau was drawing them into a trap, deleted the message and distanced themselves from the Admiral. His coup attempt collapsed, backfiring to disgrace him and consolidate the Emperor's position. On his shuttle, Emperor Hadrian Lux IV received a report detailing Admiral Garrus's failed plot and the bizarre message that had stopped it. He looked at Jovan Reed's calm, knowing face on the view screen. These humans were technologically superior. They were political grandmasters. They had dismantled a military threat with a weapon and a political threat with a memo, all in the same afternoon. With his internal opposition neutralized and his own personal safety guaranteed by these strange, powerful new players, the Emperor decided.
Secretary General Reed,
he said, his voice now imbued with a genuine, if terrified, respect.
The Cymic Imperium formally recognizes the sovereignty of the Terran Confederacy. Let us begin our dialogue.
Days later, the Diplomat's Courtesy docked at Lunar Analysis Station 3. The Cymic fleet, now a diplomatic envoy, waited patiently at a respectful distance. An escort brought Kenna Rohan from her cell. The Secretary General had commuted her formal arrest, her record sealed. Guards led her to a small, private briefing room. Jovan Reed was waiting for her, standing by a large window that overlooked the curve of Earth.
You are a weapon, Dr. Rohan,
he said, his back to her.
You are brilliant, unpredictable, and you operate on a level of intellectual audacity that I can barely comprehend. You are also a terrifying liability who violated every chain of command and nearly ignited an interstellar war.
It seems to have worked out,
Kenna said, her usual smirk returning.
This time,
Reed corrected, turning to face her.
You won a battle of wits. The next crisis might require something other than a well-aimed piece of information. It might require trust, alliances, patience, things unfamiliar to you.
He paused, studying her.
You are not wasting your talents in a lab anymore. It's like keeping a fusion reactor in a broom closet. Eventually, the whole station burns down.
Kenna's smirk faltered slightly.
So I'm fired?
No, Reed said. You're being promoted.
He gestured to a chair.
I'm creating a new branch of the Diplomatic Corps, the Diplomatic Cyber Relations Command. Its mandate will be to analyze, understand, and, when necessary, engage with the information networks of our new galactic neighbors. The command will be our eyes and ears in a world we are only beginning to understand, and you will be its head.
Kenna stared at him, speechless for once.
This is a new assignment, Doctor, a responsibility,
Reed continued, his voice firm.
The assignment is a leash, a longer one, perhaps, but a leash all the same. You will report directly to me. You will have a team, resources, and a mandate to be creative, but you will act only with my authority. Your job is to provide me with options and weapons. I will decide their deployment. Give me cause to affirm this decision.
He extended a hand. After a moment's hesitation, Kenna shook it. His grip was surprisingly strong. Weeks later, Kenna sat at the center of a vast new command center deep within the diplomatic complex in Olympia. The main screen before her showed more than a single star system. It showed a map, teeming with the myriad stars of the Cymek Imperium, their data networks now open to her through formal diplomatic channels. She zoomed out. The Imperium was just a small, colorful splash on the screen. Beyond it, the vast, unexplored spiral of the Milky Way spread out, a tapestry of infinite unknown lights, a sea of puzzles, threats, and wonders. Dr. Kenna Rohan, head of the new Diplomatic Cyber Relations Command, flexed her fingers over the console. A slow, focused smile spread across her face. It was time to get to work.